Hey YouTube, welcome back to Tinker with Tools. Tonight we're going to be talking about the relatively new Ridgid 4-mode impact driver. We're going to be talking about what's different over this and prior models that they have. We're going to get into all those details tonight on Tinker with Tools. Alright, so before we get started, I just want to get this out of the way. Ridgid actually was kind enough to send this impact driver over to me for testing. I really do appreciate the support, Ridgid. Thank you for sending that over. At the same time, these opinions still are going to be mine, and I do strive to always be honest with you. So if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know, and I will answer them to the best of my abilities. But once again, thank you, Ridgid, for supporting the channel. Now let's get on with the video. Alright, so as I mentioned, this is the relatively new 4-mode impact driver from Ridgid. It is going to be model number R862312. This actually was announced at the end of last year in tandem with their new high torque hammer drill. But when they announced these tools, it felt like another step up towards more being a premium brand in terms of performance with their top tier tools. Now, as I've mentioned before, my history with Ridgid goes back quite a ways. My very first 18-volt impact driver was actually the Ridgid Gen 4 line, and I had that for a short time before I then upgraded to the Gen 5X. Now the Gen 5X, when I got it, I thought it was going to be my forever impact. Now after getting it home, using it for a year or more, I found sometimes that it just sort of lacks some of the finesse that I was looking for in the tool. And so as I began to use that more and more, I just kind of felt like that piece of it was lacking, and so I did end up gifting it to someone else. Now, a few years later, I actually did come back to the Ridgid line with their 3-speed impact driver that we'll talk about later on tonight. This tool tempted me because it felt like it was a return to that top tier or premium power. And what I mean by that is all of the specs were starting to really line up with being a more premium impact driver. So first off, when we talk about impact driver, I think there's 3 specs that are worth talking about, or 3 specs that are worth mentioning. They're going to be the speed of the impact driver, the number of blows or impacts per minute, and then also the torque figure. And you'll see some brands will play more to one of those figures or the other, but really it's going to be a combination of those numbers. Now when we talk about this tool, the torque figure on this tool is actually quite impressive. It's 2,300 inch-pounds of torque. But in terms of speed, this impact driver is down at 2,900 RPMs, which is actually on the relatively slow side when you're talking about premium impact drivers. Some of them are starting to get up closer to that 4,000 number. And so in practice, when I would use this tool, although the refinement felt like a better step in the right direction, it is a lighter and smaller tool in my opinion. It just never quite felt like the performance was right there with the top tier tools in the market. But overall, this was a good step in the right direction. So then when they announced this new 4-mode impact driver, what are the numbers that kind of caught my attention? This one is now boasting 2,400 inch-pounds of torque, which I do think is an impressive figure. But the more important figure, or the more important improvement in my opinion, is that it went up to 3,400 RPMs. Now the impacts per minute went up to 4,300. Previously they were at 4,200. But that increase of 500 RPMs had me intrigued. Well, now that I've got it in my hands, I can say that I have been impressed with it so far, and I do feel like that improvement in speed has made this a different impact driver. Well, I want to go ahead and do some testing tonight. We're going to be testing against the old impact driver so you can kind of see what that difference in performance is. And then we're going to be talking about how I feel it ranks against some of the other top tier impact drivers in the market. All right, so first off, we are going to be using a 3.5 inch deck screw. We're going to start in speed 1, just kind of showcase how this new impact driver drives in speed 1. All right, so it actually drove that almost entire screw in without impacting and was able to get it, I'd say, almost 3 inches of the way in without it impacting. Here's speed 2. Once again, on the smaller screw, it is just not even hesitating to drive that in. So there's speed 3. Let's go ahead and we'll drive one now with the older impact driver. So far on that test, they feel very similar. Now, yes, we are starting with the 2 amp hour batteries. At some point, we will transition over to 4 amp hour batteries. And then just to showcase it, we will do this with a 6 and an 8 amp hour battery at some point. This is a 3 1/8 inch GRK. All right, and now with the new 4 mode. All right, so this is a 4-inch GRK. All right, so first we'll show the 2 and the 4 times for the old 3 mode impact driver. All right, so from here on out, we are going to be using the 4 amp hour batteries, and then at the end, we will do a comparison on a single fastener on the new impact only with the 4, the 6, and the 8. So now we are going to be moving up to 8-inch timber locks, and we are going to run a few different tools here. So first we're going to run both of these impact drivers on the 4, and then I'm going to move up to the 6 and the 8 amp hour on the new impact only. There are the Ridgid impacts. Now let's go ahead and run through the 3 other impacts we have here. All right, so you've just seen obviously all the performance numbers for this new 4 mode Ridgid impact driver. As I mentioned previously, when they stepped up to this 3 mode impact driver, I felt like it was a really good step in the right direction. It wasn't necessarily the most powerful impact driver everywhere, but I felt like they made it a little bit more refined, and they've certainly kept with that here. This impact driver gets a little bit smaller, gets a bump in power, and gets a much needed, in my opinion, bump in speed that allows it to compete with some of those more premium impact drivers. Now, is that saying that it's the best impact driver on the market? No, I don't think it necessarily is. I think we've reached a point in power tools where it's no longer necessary to go to the top brands to get seemingly top tier performance, or at least get close to it. And I think that is what Ridgid has done with their most recent tool releases, is they're now putting out some performance that rivals a lot of those top tier tools, and you're starting to see that throughout their lineup, whether it's being done in testing on some of their impact wrenches that have done quite well recently. Obviously the hammer drill I've actually quite liked, especially with this 8 amp hour XP. That hammer drill is actually very impressive. This impact driver is now taking that step as well. I didn't talk much about the self-tapping mode, but that is the 4th mode in this 4 mode impact driver. So if you are using a lot of metal fasteners, this is obviously now going to be better equipped to do that and to make sure you're not stripping out those fasteners. Where are some of the things where I think it may not be quite cutting it in terms of professional level or getting close to it? We're starting to see better and better light placement on impact drivers. And with this one, the light is not awful by any means, but it does feel like it is still living a little bit in the past. That is one thing that I wish we did see better light placement up on here. That is one thing I could see that would be nice if they would improve in future generations of this tool. Just having the single light down on there in the base, I think it's been shown time and time again, it's not the most optimal place for that. As far as the rest of the ergonomics of the tool, I think they are pretty good. The rest of the tool is still going to be Ridgid that you're used to. And then of course with Ridgid, you are going to be backed with that lifetime service agreement. We know it's not a warranty. I'm not professing it to be a warranty, but it does give you some layer of protection on both the batteries and the tool, that you are going to be able to get them serviced long term should they go out on you. Now obviously you do need to register that in a timely manner with the tool. Go ahead and take care of that, and then put that lifetime service agreement to use if these tools falter at all. And I think that's where you start to get some real value out of the Ridgid brand, is if you can use that lifetime service agreement to prolong the life of your tools, you can start to see pretty good results. If you're a Ridgid user, I think over the past few years it might have felt a little bit like you're on a roller coaster ride. You know, you had your Gen 5X that felt like it was going up, Octane felt like it was going up again, and then we came down to kind of this first gen brushless tool where the power figures were diminished, especially on the hammer drill, and so we didn't necessarily see the same top performance that we were hoping for. Tools got better ergonomically, and now this generation of them seems to be delivering more on that performance in line with what we were getting. Now let's talk about price on this. When they announced the new high torque hammer drill and then this impact driver, the hammer drill was sold as tool only. The impact driver was not. It is only sold in a kit form for $199. We'll have pictures of that now. And with that, you do get a charger, a 2 amp hour max output battery, and a hard case for it. Now, one of the nice things about the hard case is it does have a spot for the drill. If you buy both of them, it kind of makes them a kit together. I have been told that they will be offering it as tool only later this year. And so if that's something you've been waiting for, I don't know when exactly that'll be, but hopefully that is when you can get your hands on this tool only if that's what you're waiting for. I do think if you're on the Ridgid platform, this is a great impact driver. The performance figures will have told you if it's a worthy upgrade over the previous one, and it is seemingly on par with the performance of those other top tier impact drivers we had. Go ahead and leave any comments or questions about this impact driver down in the comments below. And if you like the video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It does help promote the channel. So thanks for watching, and as always, I'll catch you next time on Tinker with Tools.